Tiger fans, what's going on, guys? So, I did a midweek video this week right after Eduardo Rodriguez had his start, and I had to come on. I came on here and I discussed why the Tigers should trade Eduardo Rodriguez if he continues to pitch how he's pitching, and the fans should want him, the Tigers, to basically hold on to him because of his opt-out clause. And if he pitches well, he's going to opt out, and the someone's going to have to pay him a bunch of money. The Tigers don't want to be the team to be that team to pay him a bunch of money because of his age, his past track record. And I was really surprised. I honestly thought a lot of people were going to be like, this is a bad take, blah, blah, blah. We finally have a pitcher that's pitching well, and it'd be stupid to trade him because they're winning games. Surprisingly, a lot of you guys, because a lot of people who watch my videos are smart and they have an understanding of how the game of baseball works, and they agreed that the Tigers should trade Eduardo Rodriguez because they keep him, they have to extend him. You keep him, you don't extend him, you get nothing for him. At least if you trade him, you get something for him. So that was and excuse me for looking down over here because I needed to be able to see the scores. That was the third game of the series before they welcomed in the Seattle Mariners for 3 games. So last week was basically a week of pretty much sweeps. They had swept the Mets, and then they had took 2 or 3 from the Cardinals, and they went and faced the Guardians. So the last 2 years, the Tigers have actually began to play the Guardians a little bit better, especially in Cleveland. And the first game of the series, the Tigers were facing off against Bybay, and I think it's how I say his name. It's Bybay because it looks like BB, but I think it's Bybay. And consistently good contact off of him. Ended up dropping, what was the score? It was 6-2. Ended up dropping 6 total runs in that game. Got some big hits. Offense looked good. Looked like it was continuing over. And then you go to game 2 of the series, and it was Shane Bieber up against the Tigers offense. And this is the game this past week that we kind of started seeing the Tigers offense creep back into being the Tigers offense. Now, let's be real here, guys. If the Tigers were to win what we thought is an improvement, 75 games, 77 wins, somewhere in there is an improvement, they're not going to play 7-3 baseball. Like, that's some Tampa Bay Rays bullshit. The Tigers have been playing better, undoubtedly been playing better. Their offense over the last almost 20 games is averaging just under 5 runs a game. But when we saw this second game of the series against Shane Bieber, we kind of started to see creeping in what we had saw prior to that Mets series, where getting a lot of guys on base, but not having anyone come out with big 2-out hits. Now, Riley Green and Torkelson over the last week and a half have been those guys who have been coming up with big 2-out RBIs. Torkelson has had a bunch of 2-out RBIs in the last couple of weeks, and he's gotten screwed of a few RBIs because he's coming up with runners on base, and he's hitting piss missiles everywhere. Like, there was a ball in the Mariners series where someone got thrown out at the plate. Or it was the Guardian series. Someone got thrown out at the plate on a ball that Torkelson hit because it was hit so damn hard. It was Eric Haas. He got thrown out at the plate because the ball was hit so damn hard, and they didn't stand a chance. And I think Javier Baez got thrown out at the plate on a ball that Spencer Torkelson hit because they didn't stand a chance because Torkelson's hitting the ball so damn hard at people right now that you're like, holy shit, these outfielders are playing in self-defense. It's like getting a frozen rope hit at you at shortstop, but it's a left fielder. The dude's ripping the ball everywhere. His at-bats have still consistently been good. So, but we started seeing this trend again over the last couple of days that the Tigers offense getting a lot of runners on base and couldn't come up with a big hit. Now, this game against Shane Bieber, the Tigers had runners on base in every single inning and a runner in scoring position in every single inning except for the 9th inning. And it was a disappointing game. There was a ginormous moment in this game where Spencer Torkelson was at second, and my brother and I were talking during this game. And Jonathan Schoop hit the best ball he's hit all year, which getting a ball out of the infield where he doesn't pop it up is an accomplishment for that guy, really, at this point in time with how bad he's been hitting. But he hit a ball to center field, and Miles Straw ran it out, and it was deep. Miles Straw's back was to the infield, and his momentum was being taken away from the infield, and he's going towards the track. And Torkelson should have tagged up because the following hitter hit a ball way deep, and it would have been the tying run. It would have been a 1-1 game. The Guardians later scored one more run later in the game, and the Tigers lose this game 2-0. Now, it was a game that, Shane Bieber, you could tip your cap to him because Bieber has pretty much owned the Tigers for the last couple of years. They've only hit him up, I think, maybe once. I think I remember start last year where they hit him up for 5 runs. It might have been in April or early May. I remember it was at Comerica Park. They got to him pretty good. And, excuse me, my tablet dropped, of course. But he has been pitching against the Tigers pretty well, but they had so much traffic and so many left on base in this game. And that base running blunder, I mean, who knows if the Tigers win because they did lose 2-0 and there was an add-on run late in that game. But, I mean, 1-1 going into the 7th inning is a lot different than being down 2-0, especially because the Guardians, they may not be hitting well, but they have a good bullpen. So the last game in the series was the Eduardo Rodriguez game where, again, he pitches outstanding. I believe he went 7 innings this game again. Shutout. Tigers dropped 5 runs on them. It was... I think they dropped 3 in the 5th inning because I remember I listened to this game on the radio. It was 5-0 by the 4th or the 5th, and then the Tigers' offense really quieted down. And you're thinking, okay, they get out of Cleveland, a place where they traditionally haven't played well, but they've started to play a little bit better over the last couple of years. And, you know, positive vibes are going back to Detroit. They're facing a Mariners team that they have a lot of struggling hitters. And they're facing Marco Gonzalez game 1. It's a lefty. The Tigers have a lineup full of righties that can hit lefties pretty well. We're going to come home. You're going to take 2 or 3 from the Mariners, and they're going to leave 500. Perfect, great, awesome. Yeah, well, that was not the case. Game 1. Oh, my God. I was driving up to Michigan Friday, listening to this game, and this game was done. Matt Boyd pitched absolutely horribly. Let 5 runs in. I think he had 3 walks. His command was absolutely putrid. And the Mariners hit a few home runs off of him. And the Tigers, I don't know what it's been with their starters this year in the gopher ball. It seems like everyone not named Eduardo Rodriguez is having a really hard time not giving up home runs. Like Michael Lorenzen, Alex Faedo's got 2 starts and 4 home runs given up already. I think Matt Boyd's probably got close to 10 home runs given up already. And I bet you Lorenzen's closing in on 5 or 6 and only 4 starts. It seems like if your name's not Eduardo Rodriguez, they can't keep the ball in the yard. But I will say, luckily, a lot of these home runs that they're giving up have been a lot of solo shots, 2-run homers, not like murder balls like grand slams and stuff. Like Jose Cisnero coming out, giving out 3 home runs, and Chasen Shreve and Mason Englert giving up 2 3-run homers. But Matthew Boyd looked absolutely horrible. His worst start pretty much of this year. His command was absolutely piss poor. I don't think he even made it 3 1/3. I can't remember, but he got pulled pretty early, and it was a bullpen day. Tyler Holton came out, pitched really, really well, and quieted it down. But it was over. It was absolutely over. J-Rod just came out and hit a dagger shot. Jake Rogers hit a 2-run homer in this game. I think it made it 2-4. But that was it. They got absolutely destroyed. Marco Gonzalez absolutely shut them down, and it was a no contest. J-Rod, who's been really struggling, if you sleep on this guy as a center fielder, you're dumb. Because watching this guy run down balls in center field, and Comerica Park's a big center field, this dude is fast, and he gets to everything. He made Comerica Park center field this series look absolutely small. And I was really surprised Teoscar Hernandez, who's only got 5 walks and almost 60 strikeouts in the season. This guy hits a home run. He hits a home run off of Alex Faedo. And Faedo's start was so weird because Faedo set a career high for strikeouts this game, had 7 strikeouts. His slider looked filthy. It was the best I've ever seen his slider in any one of his starts. He had really good stuff and really good command, but he had 2 pitches. He had a ball on the inner third to Teoscar Hernandez. It was a slider on the inner third, and he rips it, absolutely piss missile. And then Jared Kelnick, the pitch he threw to Jared Kelnick, who hits righties pretty good for a lefty. He hit a ball, and it was a rocket, like a 20-foot high piss missile rocket almost off the foul pole. Ripped it for a 2-run shot, and that was pretty much it. The Tigers' offense this game was shut down. They had a few doubles, and that was really about it. They couldn't get anyone. I don't think they even got anyone to third. Now, this game today was a really good game. I listened to most of it, watched a little bit of it because I had things to do today. But the Tigers' offense mounted a comeback late. Nick Maton, who's been struggling horribly bad, lucked out. Basically, the game unfolded, I believe, in the 6th or 7th inning. They loaded I believe it was the 7th inning because Gilbert pitched a great game, and then some of the swings by the 6th inning got really good, and Gott came out, and Matt Brash, and Matt Brash had no control. Bases were loaded. They had a bases loaded walk, and then Nick Maton got hit by a pitch. So they scored a couple of runs. Eventually, they took a 5-3 lead and kept it. Now, this game today was more indicative of what we've saw of the Tigers' offense the prior series. Excuse me, when they had those sweeps, the sweep against the Mets, and taken 2 or 3 from the Cardinals, and taken 2 or 3 from the Guardians. First 2 games of this Mariner series was more of the same old, same old. I mean, the first game they got wrecked. The game was over essentially by the 4th inning. And then the second game, they absolutely mounted no offense. This game, it looked like it was going to be out of hand, out of mind real quick because Joey Wentz came out. Didn't have his best command, and AJ Hinch pulled him really early before the game got out of hand when they were down 3-0. And the bullpen came out and again really pitched really well. Mason Engler, Jose Cisnero, Jason Foley, all those guys. Alex Lane came out and pretty much locked it down and held the game at bay. But this game almost got a hand real quick, real early, and the Tigers were almost swept. And now, luckily, they have an off day because the bullpen has been really taxed over the last 2 days of the Mariners series because they got short starts with Boyd and Wentz. And, Wentz, it's been kind of Jekyll and Hyde because it's so weird. You'll see this guy's command waver. And this guy, it seems like when his command is really bad, he's missing glove side up and away. Everything he throws up and away. When Wentz isn't getting that curveball over for strikes, he's not effective against righties. And when his fastball command is missing up and away and he can't pound right-handers in and he's missing up to left-handers, he just has no chance. Because Wentz has a good fastball. It's can't touch 97, but a lot of the times it's 92 to 94. But he really lives on being able to throw his changeup to right-handers and cutter in on right-handers to keep the right-handers off the plate and keeping the changeup away and having the curveball as an equalizer to both righties and lefties. But, man, his command was just all over the place. Up, up, up. When Wentz is really bad, you can go back and watch any of his starts last year, like his first start or one of his earlier starts. He's always missing glove side up. It seems like whenever when Wentz is going to have a bad start, it's glove side up. And I don't know what that means in his mechanics. Obviously, he's not a pitching coach. But, man, when he has a bunch of misses up there, you're in for a struggle because he has good stuff. He legitimately has strikeout stuff. And when his command is on, it is really good because he has a plus curveball. And his changeup is definitely a work in progress, but he's made a bunch of progress with it. And his fastball is good. He has a really good fastball and a good cutter. So I have a lot of faith in him, and I think he's a good pitcher. But, man, he really needs to work on being more consistent in the strike zone and throwing more quality strikes and competitive pitches. Because today was a day he just did not have it. And AJ Hinch knew he couldn't let the Tigers lose today because they needed to squander at least one win because, coming into the Comerica Park and having a chance to, leave this, if they took the series, leave 500. And now you're a few games under. If we look at the standings, in the AL Central, Minnesota's 23-18. They're 4 up on the Tigers, and the Tigers are now a half game back behind the Guardians. They're 18-19 or 18-21, and the Guardians are 19-21. And now the Pirates are coming into town. And luckily, the Pirates, after having the really good start and having like the 3rd best record in the MLB, they've really slumped off. They had like an 8-game losing streak, and a lot of their guys are cooling off. And the Tigers are going to miss Mitch Keller. Thank God, because Mitch Keller has been pitching absolutely great. A few things I wanted to touch on in the week and just talk about a few hitters for this video. This is the best stretch I've seen Riley Greene as a big leaguer. His consistency of his contact, I don't know what his average is right now. Obviously, I don't have it in front of me, but I think it's somewhere in the 270s. And this guy, every single game, has been having at least one hit. He's probably had 4 multi-hit games over the last 10 days, and his strikeouts are way down. He's starting to walk more. He's getting deeper into counts, and I'm just extremely impressed at the turn he's been able to take in the month of May. Like, this is Riley Greene. You can see like why people think he's going to be a superstar and why I'm so high on him. And I was reading an article in The Athletic, and I was really disappointed in what he had said. he was talking about he had to delete Twitter and a lot of his social media because he was reading stuff about how people saying Riley Green's a bust and Riley Green's never going to be anything. And he had to delete it because it was affecting his mindset, and he was bringing it to the ballpark and putting all that pressure on himself because he was such a high draft pick, and all these people are shitting on him and making him feel like shit. Now, I don't want to have a pity party for these players because I do talk a lot of shit about, Javier Baez and Jonathan Scope because, it's warranted with, Javier Baez making all the money he's making, and it would be as horrible as he's been overall, not recently, but overall as a Tiger, having as bad a year as he did last year, and, how bad he was at the start of the season, and now, he's hitting a lot better, but, he's a very streaky hitter. But for guys like Torkelson and Green, who aren't even 24 yet, and, Torkelson had in an interview last year at the end of the year in Seattle saying that, he had to sit down and really think, the comments that people are making are saying how much of a bust he is and how bad he sucks. And he had to realize himself that he doesn't suck because it was fucking with his mindset so much. I don't know. I just think when you got guys like Cody Stavenhagen and all these other guys, were really trying to push narratives against Torkelson and Green last year, and, they read that kind of shit, and it really does mess with their confidence. And I think a team, when they were playing on a team that was as bad as the Tigers were last year, and they had as much pressure as they did last year to perform and be superstars right off the rip, try to be a Ronald Acuna, or even how J-Rod came out after the first month last year and absolutely ripped it up and hit all those home runs, and even Bobby Witt hit 20 home runs his first year in the league. And Michael Harris, how he came out and was a superstar. These guys have the same kind of viewpoints looked upon them, and the media is pushing all these narratives towards these guys, and they're reading it, and it's adding even more pressure to it. And I just think it's extremely fucked up that these people, for these kids that were 21, 22 years old last year, putting all this pressure on them, and they want to be good, and they know they have the draft status, what they had, and the pressure looked upon them to succeed and perform. And they had to sit there and delete all the social media and stuff because it's fucking with them mentally. And it's like you think about, you give these kids a fair shot and give these kids a fair chance and let them, learn at the big leagues and fail a little bit. And it's bringing opportunities for them to succeed. Torkelson really hasn't had a bad stretch all year, and his average has climbed up a lot in the extra base power. And Riley Green has looked the best Riley Green has looked in a major league uniform. He had some hot stretches last year, but this last 15 games is the most consistent contact I've ever seen Riley Green make when it comes to strikeout rate, putting balls in play. Even his outs are good swings and making hard contact. You haven't seen him hardly roll over to first base or second base at all. It's a lot of doubles. And his swing is look great, and Torkelson's just hitting rockets everywhere. And you got to give Scott Harris a lot of credit because, you look at some of these guys, whether it's bringing in the hitting coaches that he's brought in and, the philosophy changes of the organization, and you're seeing like guys like pay dividend like Andy Ibanez and Zach McKinstry. You got to give Scott Harris a lot of credit for talent evaluation and bringing in these people to help these guys succeed and try to get better at the next level. Because, something I have a feeling that if Al Avila was still the GM, these kind of changes wouldn't have been made towards this kind of direction, and these guys would probably still be just as bad and struggling just as much. And I think a lot of it has to do with this philosophy change, the whole general clubhouse, the feel of it. And, you can read articles, they talk about how the clubhouse feel is, and AJ Hinch has commented on it a couple times on Movie Network Radio. If you listen to his weekly interview on Tuesdays, like I do, talks about just how the clubhouse, when they lose, it doesn't feel gloom and doom like they're letting everybody down. They take their loss and they go, something, we can get them tomorrow. They're starting to believe they can win. And you get guys like Nick Maton and Matt Vierling and changing the feel and changing the clubhouse dynamic, and these guys starting to believe they can win. You could see it translate to the field. You could see this team has a lot more energy, and you could see this team, the maturity of these players. And, with the way Green and Torkelson struggled last year, now they're not rookies anymore. These guys have had a year under their belt. These guys have had their struggles. They've seen the struggles. They know what it's like to have the pressure of all the media on them because they're not hitting that great. And, they've learned how to handle it and mature. And then you add guys like Maton and Vierling and, the pickups of like Ibanez and McKinstry and the defensive versatility that this team has and being able to match up handedness. It's, even though they didn't play that great in a couple of games this week and the offense, stuttered, there still was has been a lot of positives. Now, one thing I think it needs to happen sometime soon is they need to address what's going on with Nick Maton. The guy's hitting like 150 something he finally got on base today because he got hit and it drew an RBI. But the guy just looked absolutely lost the plate. Now, what I'm worried about is if they send Maton down, what's it going to do to the clubhouse dynamic? Because he's looked upon as such a guy, as a chemistry dude that really helps, this whole team stick together. So what does it do for their winning attitude and their culture? One guy can't affect everything that much because they need Maton to be good. And I look at it like this. They've been playing Andy Ibanez a lot at third base, and they've been making Nick Maton a DH. I don't know if Nick Maton's, and this is kind of leading me to think that maybe Nick Maton is going through a little bit of an injury that they don't want to IL him for because he's trying to play through it. Because if he wasn't going through some kind of an injury or some kind of ailment keeping him down, why is he not playing at third more? Because all of a sudden Andy Ibanez is playing at third. Now Ibanez is playing a fine third base, but I think Nick Maton's a better third baseman than Andy Ibanez is. And I'm starting to think with as bad as Nick Maton's been and as bad as some of his swings have looked, maybe he's got something going on and something bothering him that the Tigers aren't saying with how much they've been DHing him and putting, Andy Ibanez at third. So who knows? But they got to do something. And this guy really needs to learn how to hit breaking balls. He had one of the worst averages in the major leagues on breaking balls last year, and you could see why. You throw him curveballs and sliders in the dirt, he looks lost. And the thing is now he's so trying to hit the breaking ball because he's so scared of because he knows they're going to throw it to him, and he can't hit it. And he's so cognizant of trying to hit the breaking ball and trying to be on trying to hit it that now he's not hitting fastballs. Because it's really hard you can't hit the breaking ball if you can't hit the fastball. But if you're sitting breaking ball and you keep getting fastballs, you're in a recipe for destruction because it is impossible to sit breaking ball and adjust to a 97-mile-an-hour heater when you're expecting something in the 80s or high 70s. You're supposed to hit the fastball and react to the breaking ball because you got to be on time for it. And Nick Maton's a good fastball hitter. But, man, he's not even hitting fastballs now because he's so in between on everything because he knows he can't hit curveballs and sliders, and he's looking really bad at the plate. But I think he might have something going on, and the Tigers aren't saying anything as much as they've been DHing him. Another thing I want to touch on here before end this, Akil Baddoo has really, really started to have some big at-bats. Like today, he had a double into left field over Sam Haggerty's head and tied the game. Some of his at-bats have been really, really good. He's already got 5 doubles this year. And the Tigers team as a whole, you want to talk about how a year makes a difference. The amount of doubles and extra base hits this team has been having, especially for the last 13 games. Now, for the last couple games, it hasn't translated into a lot of runs. The Tigers have had a hard time hitting with runners to score in position. Their offense is kind of quieted down a little bit. But, man, all the doubles. Ibanez has already got 6 doubles. Riley Green, who only had 1 double coming into the month of May, I think already has 6 or 7. Torkelson's got 5 or 6. McKinstry's got 4 or 5. I mean, the amount of extra base hits these guys are having is a lot better because last year they just did not have that kind of power and that kind of pop, and the team speed's a bit better this year too. So it's been fun watching this offense, a lot better than last year. But Akil Baddoo has looked a lot better. Riley Green, Torkelson's consistent at bats have looked really, really good. Javier Baez continues to swing a good stick. McKinstry continues to put good at bats. Andy Ibanez hadn't struck out in a few games. I think he was going like 30 or 35 plate appearances without a strikeout. He was looking absolutely outstanding. So, although the offense took a bit of a step back this week and Seattle kind of embarrassed them, and it was more so the starting pitching letting it down more so than the offense not getting it done because the starting pitching putting the Tigers in such a hole so quick. But there's still a lot of positives, a lot of things to like right now, a lot of good things about how they're playing, and I'm not too disappointed they didn't get the 500 this week. I think the Pittsburgh is a good matchup for them, and they're missing Mitch Keller. I think this is a good chance for them to get back or close to 500 at the end of the homestand after they get done playing Pittsburgh. So I got for you guys this week. I will be back next week for another episode of This Week in Tigers Baseball. Have a good one, guys. Go Tigers.